The way I kind of got involved in caregiving or providing care is through family members. My sister, who lives in India, she has schizophrenia and she has a daughter. She also was born with learning disability. We had choices between an assisted living, which was too much of an investment, and on the other side, we could have done home care, which is probably on the other extreme. It's less investment, less revenues, but it's more manageable. So we kind of took the middle of the road path, which was okay. Let's provide daycare. So we started the idea, and I put the numbers together. I made estimates of initial investment, and those numbers were grossly wrong, right, big time. And that was kind of the worst learning. It's one of those situations where now you have cut the ropes and the boat is in the ocean and you have to figure out a solution. In America, everything goes by credit. You may not have assets, but if you have a good credit, then the creditors will trust you. So there are a lot of regulatory requirements which we had to learn along the way. Like for example, you need to have a quiet space. It's called a quiet room, and for every 10 clients, you need to provide either a bed or a recliner. So there are certain key staff members that you need to have in order for them to give you a license. Because their expectation is that once you get the license, technically next day you could bring in clients. It took a long time, but many blessings came along the way, and I think that's important that you believe. And anything that comes in that may initially appear like, oh man, don't tell me, like this is such a pain, it turns out to be a blessing at the end. When you look back, like as Steve Jobs said in one of his speeches, right? You have to look back to connect the dots. I've so much come to believe that everything happens for a reason, and when you look back and when you try to connect those dots, it is the way it's supposed to happen. It's exactly the way it's supposed to happen. I had given my resignation at Bloomberg 2 weeks before COVID. And because we had already started the construction, I was pretty set in my mind that this is where I wanted to be. Even though there was no, revenue, no income, no business, because we were still in the construction phase, I was 100% positive. So I'd given my resignation. So if I didn't go into this current venture and business I'm in, rewind like 5 years, I was a failure because I gave up on those businesses. But really looking back, I gave up on those because those were not meant for me, right? And your heart will tell you when something is really meant for you. What you're doing is truly phenomenal, because I heard a couple of your podcasts with other business owners and even other professionals, and it was truly inspiring. So what you're doing is truly commendable, and thank you for selecting me because it's special.
Welcome to What's Up Pro once again. Today we have a guest whose story is a perfect blend of ambition, heart, and the wellness. Meet Sesh, the dynamic founder of Down to Dusk Wellbeing Center in Dayton, New Jersey. After earning his MBA in finance from Virginia Tech, Sesh spent 25 years thriving at Bloomberg LP. But in 2021, he traded his corporate life for something far more fulfilling, creating a well-being center that feels like a home for many. Now he's channeling his passion for fitness, healthy living, and community care into a center that offers adult daycare for special needs. Imagine a place where exercise, good food, and heartfelt care, which stands for compassion, action, respect, and empowerment, come together in perfect harmony. We are excited to dive into Sesh's incredible journey, the ups and downs of running down to dusk, and some fun behind the scenes stories from his center. Get ready for an inspiring and joyful conversation. Let's give a warm welcome to Sesh. Welcome, Sesh. Is that
Thank you.
right, Sesh? Is
Yes,
correct, right?
that's perfect. Yeah. Yeah, it's Seshadri, but different people, most people in the professional world call me Sesh, and I've realized that most Indians, because they know Seshadri, they would say Sesh. That's totally fine.
Welcome to What's Up Pro.
Thank you.
So, you run a well-being center. Can you tell us about it? Like, what is Wellbeing Center?
Sure. Um, it's a service that's dedicated towards humanity, and ensuring the well-being of the fellow human beings that we serve. Initially, it started off as an adult medical daycare concept, mostly catered towards seniors that have Alzheimer's and dementia. But over time and through COVID, it evolved into still a daycare, but catered towards adults with developmental disabilities. And our goal and mission is to ensure the well-being, which means physical, mental, spiritual, and ensuring that they are able to, live as you know as complete a life as we are able to without the developmental disabilities that we have, and also to serve their families because the families do go through a lot, and it also ensuring the well-being.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of responsibility, I guess, right? So how do you get into this?
It's a long story, and I'll try to keep it as condensed as possible. I worked for a company that Bloomberg, for most of my life. I spent at Bloomberg. That's really the only real job I worked at. I started working there in 1996, and I was on the financial side. Bloomberg is a technology company. It provides financial data and analytics, but I was more on the financial side. And a lot of us think about starting something on our own, especially after we have spent some time on the corporate side. We are like, okay, I want to start my own business. But because of my background and my experience, I would be always thinking about financial types of businesses. So, I registered a brokerage company. I thought about becoming a certified planner, an investment analyst, starting like an investment analysis company. But every time I would get into it and start working towards it, or drawing a business plan, or trying to find investors, my heart would never be there. Like it was never like completely in it, right? So those were like the answers for me that maybe this is not it, right? And why, on retrospect, I was being led towards this path where it made sense for me to create something that's totally not finance, like the opposite of finance, right? So the way I kind of got involved in caregiving or providing care is through family members. My sister, who lives in India, she has schizophrenia. She's 2 years older to me. I'm 53, she's 55. And she has a daughter. The daughter just turned 21. She also was born with learning disability. And my siblings, so we are a total of five of us. And the remaining four, we have made it one of our responsibility to take care of her for the rest of the life, because she doesn't have any earning, neither does the daughter. So we were working with my mother, who was living in India at that time, to provide the right kind of support and care and the infrastructure for my sister and my niece to be able to, achieve certain things in life, or at least have the right supports. And what we started seeing, my mom used to be the main caregiver. And we started seeing that my mom's health was deteriorating as she was trying to take care of them. So right around, 2014, 2013, my father had passed away. And we decided that, we want our mom to come here and stay with us. We could see signs of dementia setting in. So she came over, and my mom lives with me. And when she left India to come and live with us, as a US citizen, she already had the citizenship. We needed to figure out what would be the support that my sister and my niece in India would be able to get. So we started figuring out things from here. My two sisters from here, and myself, we make frequent trips to India, trying to find the right supports, or sort of caregivers. We also found an apartment for her where she and my niece could live independently with a caregiver, and having the support to live as independently as possible. And through all this, and at the same time, then back here at my home here, so providing the right kind of support to my mom, because her dementia is getting worse. And I really realized at that point is I enjoy doing that. I enjoy providing the right kind of support structure, the infrastructure, reaching out to different type of businesses, or even like the caregiving companies, and figuring out unique solutions. Like my experiences working with my sister in India and providing the right supports was really very unique, and I realized that I enjoy doing that. And so right around 2016 or so, we formed this company. We're calling it PAR Enterprises, PARR. It's, I won't go into the details of that, but Dawn to Dusk Wellbeing Center is the DBA, and PAR Enterprises is the name of our company. And that's the LLC. We formed the company with the intention of providing care or human services to typically to the vulnerable population, but it started off with the elderlies. And so I started working on a business plan. I started putting the ideas together. And the initial goal of Dawn to Dusk Wellbeing Center was to become an adult medical daycare serving mostly seniors with Alzheimer's and dementia. So that was kind of the inception of the idea, is that, okay, I enjoy doing it. There is a need for providing help and support to these vulnerable individuals. And how can we do that? My mom was, in a way, the inspiration for that.
Tell us about the full journey from this idea to opening up the center, like all your challenges, your everything about between those two, your idea and the actual center starting, like opening.
Absolutely, yeah. Um, it's been a tremendous journey. 2016 was when it was December 2016 when we formed the LLC. And at that time, we had two other partners. And the partner, they are no longer the partners, but we started off with two other partners. Me and my wife are the owners of the company right now, founders and the owners, but we had two partners at that time. And one of the partner was very involved in the senior care business, and she was really my mentor in a lot of senses, because she provided a lot of guidance, education, just the general understanding of the industry. So we started working on a business plan, putting numbers together, figuring out. We narrowed down on providing an adult medical daycare. We had choices between an assisted living, which was too much of an investment. We didn't have the wherewithal to make those type of investment. And on the other side, we could have done home care, which is probably on the other extreme. It's less investment, less revenues, but it's more manageable. So we kind of stuck in the middle. Took the middle of the road path, which was, okay, let's provide daycare. Right, that was kind of the thought process. So we started the idea, and I put the numbers together. I made estimates of initial investment, and those numbers were grossly wrong, right, big time. And that was kind of the first learning. And by the time we got to the point where, okay, now we need to move to the next step, I'd actually signed a lease, because I'd found a beautiful. You should visit our center, because it's an amazing space. I'm glad we got the space we have. But I'd signed that lease. And it was I think early 2018 we signed the lease. So we went through all the process of looking for locations the entire 2017, finalizing the business plan, and then I went ahead and signed the lease, knowing fully well that there is going to be investment needed in completing the center, like in terms of the construction expense. But when after we signed the lease and when we went out and got architects and contractors involved, the numbers that came back in terms of the initial investment needed just to build the center. And this was just no exterior construction, just the interior building was way out of what I had imagined, right? And we didn't have the kind of financial capability at that time. So but it's one of those situations where now you have cut the ropes and the boat is in the ocean, and you have to figure out a solution. So I was trying to be as innovative, creative as possible. I reached out to SBA. I, in fact, remember even now clearly, we didn't have any solution to the investment, challenge. We were going to reach out to friends, families, but one of the ride backs home from New York after my job, I just filled a form in. I just did an SBA loan and it gave me a form and I completed the form and it sent that form to, I don't know, like 20 different banks. And the next day I started getting flooded with calls, right? Many major banks like JP Morgan, the Bank of America and, some TD, all these banks are calling me. And then there are the smaller banks I've never heard, Amboy Bank and little banks here and there, like banks from California, some of the banks that went bust recently, those were calling me. And I was overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do. But then eventually I picked one bank, it's by the name Valley Bank. And I went through the paperwork with them. And, that was the answer because SBA does have a very good program and they do encourage small businesses. Of course, you need to have at least a good credit standing. And that's one thing, I realized earlier in my life too. Like in America, everything goes by credit. You may not have assets, but if you have a good credit, then the creditors will trust you. So I had the good credit to back me up. I had a good, um, uh, reasonably steady salary coming in, and we had a decent net worth and a good home and all that. So we went ahead and got the SBA loan done. I mean, I'm just giving you the Cliff Note version. There was a long process. We had to put the financials together. We had to give them our business plan, projections, and all that. But eventually, the SBA loan got approved. Um, and that's how we kind of built this center. And that was kind of the journey. Like once we got the loan, we felt okay. You know what? This is possible. The architect, we hired the architect. We gave him the advance. He built a beautiful facility. Really, because initially we were going with the idea of the adult medical daycare. So there are a lot of regulatory requirements which we had to learn along the way. Like, for example, you need to have a quiet space. It's called a quiet room. And for every 10 clients, you need to provide either a bed or a recliner. So there are like these specific requirements and regulations that you need to adhere to. How many toilets and how many urinals you're going to have per each client. You need to have a nurse's station. You need to have a nurse on staff. Without a nurse, you cannot operate an adult medical daycare. So all those went into the design aspect. And on looking back, all those things have been kind of a blessing for us because and I'll get to that probably later. But the current service we provide for the developmentally disabled population, which is mandated by the DDD, the Division of Developmental Disability, that's not a requirement. But for the adult medical daycare, it was a requirement. And because we are going above and beyond what DDD requires, we have a more sought out program. So many of these little blessings came along the way. And, we built this facility, the beautiful facility that we currently have, using predominantly the funds that we got from our SBA loan. So, that's kind of the initial part of the journey. And, I'm sure there is a lot more that will come in with the subsequent question. But did this answer your question, at least the current question?
Yeah. So when you said regulatory aspects, right? Tell us about it. Like what kind of licenses you need. Like if anybody is interested in opening up similar center, what all as a checklist?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have the benefit of obtaining two. I would call it licenses, but one is license, one is called a certification. So we initially planned as an adult medical daycare, which is licensed by the New Jersey Department of Health. So they have very, very strict and stringent requirement, even about the facility, about the staffing, about ratios, about meals, and all that. So we basically went through all the requirements, including the construction. The design needs to go through the Department of Community Affairs, the DCA. So the drawing was first created by our architect. And once the drawing was created, it was submitted to the DCA. And they go through the design and they look at it very specifically. Like, okay, you are asking for this facility. We initially wanted 140 clients. So for 140 clients, do you have 10 toilets, right? No, 14 toilets, right? Because one for every 10 clients you need to have or a urinal. So they they have that specific requirement. Okay, have you designed a quiet room that has enough space to put in 10 recliners? I'm sorry, 14 recliners, because again, 140 and one recliner for 10 clients, right? So they had these ratios. So they check for every single space. Have you allocated enough space to accommodate for all these needs? Have you given us enough space for the nurse to not only do his nursing duties, but also have all the medical records? Because I can do my office work in a small space, but if I need to keep medical records for 140 clients, I need to have a lot of space. So have you given enough area? So they look all of these things and they come back to you with comments. So it took us a year and a half to get the approval from the DCA. And that was a challenging phase because you go back and forth with them. And it's one of those things where, okay, you send the initial document, they review it. They take about 3 months. It's government paperwork. And they'll come back to you and say, okay, you need to fix 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And it's not like you fix those things and you send it back and you are in the top of the queue because you already went through. You go in the back of it. So you'll need to wait another couple of months for them to review your paperwork again and then say, okay, oh, this is good, but you still have to fix this other thing. So all these fixes, it took us about a year and a half. And once those drawing up was approved, only then we could give it to a contractor for bidding. So I picked 3 contractors and they bid on the project. And then we started the construction. So the construction needs to incorporate all these factors. And after the construction is completed, the state comes in, the Department of Health comes in to check to make sure we met those requirements. And we passed that, right? And then we were granted the license. So the license requirements, and at the time of the license granting, you need to have a nurse on staff. So even though you're not paying any salaries or you don't have a payroll, you need to have someone that you designate as a nurse, as a director of nursing. So we had a nurse already hired. Of course, he was not on payroll, but he agreed to work with us. He was willing to wait. We had that. We need to have a social worker on staff, which we did. So there are certain key staff members that you need to have in order for them to give you a license. Because their expectation is that once you get the license, technically next day, you could bring in clients. So if you're going to bring in clients the next day, you need to have at least these bare minimum staffing, right? So we checked all those boxes and we were given the license and the go ahead. So that was the Department of Health. The DDD was slightly different, and that came up as a very, it was an afterthought. And again, it's a blessing, right? Because that's the only thing we are doing right now. We're not doing the Department of Health medical daycare. We're only doing the DDD program. So the DDD requirements are much more simpler for the division for the developmentally disabled. As we were going through the construction for the adult medical daycare that's mandated by the Department of Health, someone told me, I forget who it was, but it was just in passing that, oh, wow, that's great that you're building this adult medical daycare. I know someone who has a similar program, but for the developmentally disabled. And so it just stuck in my head. I'm like, oh, wow, there's something else. So I did some research, just Googling, and I found out that the Division of Developmental Disabilities of New Jersey, which is under the Department of Human Services, DHS, they also mandate a program called day habilitation. And there is a separate certification process for that, which is much simpler compared to the DOH process. So I applied for that. I'm like, we've gone through like this rigorous, process with the Department of Health. This should be a breeze. And indeed it was. Like, I applied for it. There are a few additional things I had to do and also get certain, approvals done, like fingerprinting, drug test. Some of the basic clearances taken care of. And before I knew, and at that time, by then we had COVID come in. And so the DDD actually did a virtual inspection for me because they also do an inspection, but they did it over Microsoft Teams and they gave me the approval. And so all of a sudden, come July 2020, we have the certificate of occupancy. We have the license for an adult medical daycare from the Department of Health. And we have a certification It was a provisional certification because they initially only they give you a 1 year provisional certification, and then you have to do certain things over the course of the first year to get the permanent certification. But I have these three things, and I mean two certifications, and I also have like this facility that's built out, and I have a certificate of occupancy. But we are in the middle of the COVID pandemic, and I can't do anything. So that was the predicament we were in. But we were able to get through all those processes. It took a long time, but many blessings came along the way, and I think that's important, that you believe, and anything that comes in that may initially appear like, oh man, don't tell me, like this is such a pain, it turns out to be a blessing at the end when you look back. Like as Steve Jobs said in one of his speeches, right? You have to look back to connect the dots. When you're looking in front, the dots are never apparent. But when you look back, the dots connect. There is a reason why all those things happened, and we ended up where we are today. So
Wow, you really need lots of patience to do this.
yes, yeah,
Right. Like taking all the permissions and 1.5 years just to take a certificate of occupancy. Wow, that's a lot of patience.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Tell us about your team. How do you build your team? Like how did you find all your team members and what different departments you have there?
Sure. So we initially started off, even before we got the, um, actually, I mean, obviously before we opened, but so actually soon after we got the licenses, even before actually for the adult medical daycare, I'm sorry, for the adult medical daycare, I hired the director of nursing. His name is Mike Smith, a wonderful person, and our director of transportation and kitchen. Her name is Lourdes Batista. I hired them just before we got the license because we needed and the social worker. We needed them on staff in order to get the licenses. But they're still on staff. Amazing people, right? They were able to believe that this is something that's promising, that's going to be something that they're going to be able to work for a very long period of time. So the fact that they were not on payroll, or I was not paying them, didn't bother them. So they believed in the idea, they believed in me. So I believe it was around mid 2020 that I brought them as a part of our team, and they were in all our documents. So anything that we needed for licensing, they were mentioned as the food services supervisor, the director of nursing, and the social worker. Um, and that was kind of the first test for me that, okay, yes, money is important, but these guys are team players. They are willing to look beyond the money and willing to work towards a promise that's currently not there, but they are believers, right? So
Oh,
we started with those three people.
sorry to cut
Um,
sorry to cut you off, but when you said you brought them in the team, how did you find them? That's the basic
that was, that was
connection.
the real question. Yeah. So each of them have a very unique story. For Lourdes Bethesda, the food services supervisor, I was introduced to her by a lady by the name Joan Marie Granato. You can look her up. She's a consultant in the adult medical daycare world, very well known, and she has been a tremendous source of not only inspiration but guidance and ideas over time. She introduced me to Lourdes because Lourdes used to work for her in one of her adult medical daycares as a transportation director. But Lourdes is an amazing cook, and she's a very good manager and a good leader. So she had introduced me to her and suggested that I hire her, and I just didn't even think about it. I said, "Okay, you're on board." All right. So that was Lourdes. For Mike Smith, I had put out an Indeed posting for all these positions. So Indeed is a hiring portal. So I typically do my hiring even these days through Indeed. And Mike had applied for the position of the director of nursing. And I interviewed him. I think it was a Zoom interview at that time because yeah, it was already pandemic, COVID times. So we did a Zoom interview, and he came on board just based on that Zoom interview. We connected well, and I remember both Lotus and Mike. They came in to visit. So the construction was going on even through the pandemic. And during one of the days, they came in to visit, and the floor was even concrete and all that. So yeah, those I mean those that's how I found these two of our staff that are still with us and like phenomenal. They are like two of our four pillars here that are keeping us, thriving over time. And many of our other executive hires came through Indeed. I would do the posting and they would apply, and the interviews. I would do most of the interviews. Even now, I'm involved in the interviews, and I had a sense of, okay, you know what, this would be the right person for our firm, and I would bring them in. So our program director, Emily Pope, who's now been with us for 3 years now, almost exactly 3 years. She joined July 19th of 2021. She also came to Indeed. So all of our staff, you know, um, I guess bearing for maybe three or four that have come through personal connections, they've been through regular hiring channels. Indeed being the most common.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you definitely need a big team to take care of. So, how many, what do you call them, patients, your clients?
We call them participants.
Okay. How many participants do you
Uh,
have?
we currently have 77 enrollments, and they, are enrolled. Most of them come in every day. There are about 7 or 8 that are enrolled for fewer than 5 days a week. They come like 3 days. 3 days is the bare minimum. Um, and yeah, so 77 enrollments, and those that don't. So on a daily basis, we get about 65 to 70 participants attend the program.
That's a huge number.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what all services do you provide there? Like, how is your, like, what is your typical routine like?
Yeah. So we start the day with transportation. We have 12 vehicles that go to several different cities in New Jersey. We have a pretty large catchment area. Most of the day programs in the vicinity or even within New Jersey have a catchment area of 5 or 10 miles. That's where they would typically go. Ours is 15 miles, so we have a pretty large catchment area, and we go even outside of that if it makes sense. So our day starts with that. So the transportation service is one of the most critical services because without having that, we won't be able to safely transport them here. So our earliest route starts at 6:15 in the morning, and then it goes on till about 7:30. We have different routes leaving, and the goal is to get all the participants to the center by 8:30. So 8:30 is when the program starts. We provide a breakfast. We provide 3 meals: breakfast, lunch, and an afternoon snack. So when they come in, they wash up and they are served breakfast. The food services department, which is headed by Lotus, one of our longest tenured employee. She also manages transportation, by the way. So transportation and kitchen is her department. So she would start the day getting the breakfast ready. She would make sure that all the dietary requirements are fulfilled for the participant. That's a part of what we are required to do, and that's the right thing to do anyway. So many of our individuals, they have certain dietary needs, like they may have certain food allergies, or because of their disability, they may not be able to chew their to chew their food properly. So they may need chopped diet or pureed diet or bite-sized pieces. So Lourdes is amazing in that sense that she has a binder with each participant's dietary needs, and she will make sure that every plate is fulfilled to those dietary needs, and the plate won't leave the kitchen until that is taken care of. So every person's plate is made in the kitchen with their name put in, so it's very person centered, and then it's brought to where they are sitting at the space. So we start the day at the center with breakfast. Then we do a morning meeting where just think of this as a school for adults, right? So we're trying to keep as much as the services and supports that most of the kids get at school translate to adult program, of course, with giving them the independence and some level of autonomy that any adults would prefer to have and deserve to have, right? So they go to a morning meeting where we review the schedule for the day. Each individual is assigned a team. There are 7 teams at this time, and as we grow, there'll be more teams. So they, based on their team assignment, they have slightly different schedules. They may have different outing. They may have different activities. So they are the schedule is reviewed during the morning meeting. After that, we have a 1 hour of exercise class, which is run by our nurse, Mike Smith. So our another longest tenured employee, Nurse Mike, he runs the exercise class. They all get very engaged. They're very actively participating in the exercise class. We also offer a choice for those that don't. So Mike is a very energetic exercise class. Like it's like a lot of body movement, Zumba, and those kind of exercises. So those that don't want that intensive exercise, they have a choice to move more, to do more of the some more subdued exercises like chair exercises, yoga, just simple body movement and all that, and that's done in a different part of the center. After the morning exercise, they have a certain activity station. So we have a large facility. At this time, it's about 22,000 square feet. And there are different spaces. So they have a life skills space. So they get some time during life skills, doing life skills. So they may learn how to make a bed. So we have a bedroom set up and basically a living space. So how to keep your living space clean. So making your bed, sorting your clothes and doing the laundry. There is a laundry in that living space. So learning how to do the laundry, learning how to fold clothes, learning how to stack it in their closets, and all those, how to keep your bathrooms clean. So vacuuming your floor, all that is a part of life skills. So they get time between life skills, recreational activities. So we have a recreation room where they get to do, ping pong, air hockey, some arcade video games. They have like Xbox, those type of choices, or they could just sit and relax. They could just have a relaxation time in the rec room. Then there is a book club, so that's the another activity station. So if they want to spend some time reading a book or being read to, that's a choice that they have during the morning activity station. And the fourth choice they typically have is music enrichment. So Maureen, who's been another phenomenal staff that we hired, she's a more recent employee. And just to take a slight detour, because I'm going to address your question of, how we found all these people, right? Maureen is our activities director, and she is a 32-year veteran who worked in the West Windsor Plainsboro School District, special education, and she did music education. And after 32 years at the West Windsor Plainsboro School District, she retired and she joined, just to spend some time, she joined Home Depot. She was at Home Depot working the aisles because she's a very handy type of a person. And during one of our outings, she met our staff and who was with an autistic individual, and they started talking because she knew that this individual had autism, and she started talking to my staff, and she started asking questions about Dawn to Dusk. And so my staff shared information with her and gave her my number. And before I knew, she was calling me. She was like, hey, what do you guys do? Can I come in for a tour? And I think we started talking sometime in spring of 2022. And by May, she had joined our staff as a part-time employee. She said, I cannot give a lot of time, but I want to work with you guys. And so she started as a part-time, just doing activities for our participants. By December, she wanted to move to full-time. And in January of 2023, she became a full-time employee. So for the last year and a half, and then I also promoted her to activities director. So that's another example of how we've been open to finding different people, different places based on their background. So just a detour there. And my point was, Maureen runs the music enrichment program, which is amazing. You got to come and experience it. She does drum circles, she does string instruments, she does xylophones, and they enjoy it. They just enjoy the involvement with the music enrichment program. So that's the morning activity stations. They get a choice between life skill. It's not a choice actually. They get a rotation between life skills, recreation, book club, and music enrichment. After that, it's lunchtime. So 12 to 1 is lunchtime. And again, Lourdes does her magic in the kitchen, and everybody gets the lunch that they are based on their dietary needs. Right? The menu is pretty set, and we publish the menu on a weekly basis. But the any specific food needs or dietary needs are addressed in their plates. And the lunchtime is 1 hour, but most of them are done within 30 minutes. They are done with the lunch. So they would do some socialization. They would go out for walks. They would spend time in the garden. We have a nice garden outside. So they might do some gardening activity. They may go and play basketball. There is a nice basketball hoop in our parking lot, so they may do some basketball. So they just keeping themselves busy for the remaining of the lunchtime. At 1 o'clock, they have choice activities. So they get typically on a day they get three activities to choose from, and the list of activities typically are basketball. They could play basketball outside. They could do artist studies. So Maureen picks an artist every month, and based on that artist specialty, they would do their artwork. Cooking, we teach them cooking skills, so they may be able to choose cooking. They may choose gardening activities, jewelry making, um, reading, creative writing. Uh, Sometimes this is typically once or twice a month. We would do bingo or Jeopardy. So they have an activity to choose, a large group activity to choose from. So they get to choose from typically one of three from this large list that I mentioned. And they would choose one of the activity and they would get to participate and engage in that activity. So that's 1 to 2. 2 o'clock, we would give them a snack break. Again, our snack made in our kitchen. And then 2:15, we start the dismissal. So we would call one bus, one route at a time. And then our staff will drive them home safely. They reach home. And most of our staff who are driving, their day would end closer to 3:34. So that's our services. That's how we operate the day program.
That's a lot of work the whole day. So, you have, I'm sure you'll have like diverse population coming in. How do you take care of their like food habits, cultural differences? Like, do you face any challenges over there?
Yeah, I mean, just off the bat, right, to begin with, this is the neurodiverse population that we are serving, right? So they are coming in with a lot of deficits to begin with in terms of cognitive deficiencies, health deficiencies because of cognitive deficiencies, behavioral support needs. So there are a lot of these deficiencies that it's our job to make sure that we are able to address, and that's why we exist, right? This is the purpose of our existence is that we are aware of their needs, or we should be aware of their needs. I mean, of course, there are surprises, and we need to be ready for those surprises. But yeah, so they come in with many of these challenges that they face in their life and their family members face in their life, which is why I think the family members look at a service like ours as a huge boon, right? Because for 8 hours during the day, they are now able to do what they need to be doing, whether it's a job or even doing some shopping and taking care of the house or whatever it is. We have covered them for 8 hours. So, we have staff that are trained and capable of working with these individuals, right? From the nurse, right? The nurse, many of the participants we come into our program have certain healthcare needs, and that could be stemming from their inability to have, all the time healthy diets, right? They don't have that ability to make those decisions. And even though I'm sure the family members, the parents, they try a lot, it's not always possible. So they may have blood sugar issues or high blood sugar. They may have certain cholesterol issues or heart issues. They may need certain types of medication. So that's why the nurse is here to provide all those services. Any medication that needs to be dispensed during the day program hours, the nurse takes care of that. And there is a protocol to that, right? It's not like, oh, you bring your medication and we'll serve you. The nurse makes sure that he gets the prescription and the pill bottles are delivered in the pharmacy. Either it's a bubble pack or the pharmacy bottle. So we know exactly what the dosage is, how much needs to be provided, and it's safely kept in his office under lock and key. So that is something certainly we are very adept at providing that type of services. And then there are behavioral support, right? So many of them may have certain types of anxiety, certain aggressive behavior sometimes depending on what they are going through in their life. So we have a behaviorist on staff. They're called BCBAs, Board Certified Behavior Analysts. So all these sort of medical, behavioral, cognitive support, socialization needs are things that we provide as a part of our services, and that's what we expect. Like we do. Yes, there is sometimes there are things that happen that's very surprising or very unexpected. That does happen. Someone who's normally calm all of a sudden has a major meltdown, and it's like from zero they go to 200, right? Happens not very frequently, but that does happen. But for most part, with our intake process, when we assess individuals and admit them to our program, we know what to expect, and we make sure that our staff are well trained and are able to address these needs.
So someone joins in. When they before joining the program, you certainly have one-on-one with their family members, and so what kind of discussions you have with their family member? Obviously, taking all the information about the person and everything, but other than basic needs.
Yep. So the whole process starts with a tour. So they typically would request someone will call a family member or support a case manager will call us and say, hey, such and such a family or such and such a participant is interested in your program. What is your process? So our process is that we basically ask them to come in for a tour, and that's our first level of assessment because in some cases, right during the tour, we may be able to have conversations with the family member about their general support needs, their dietary needs, their behavioral support needs, very high level. It's nothing for us enough to make a decision, but enough to make that initial impression. We have had individuals like ours is when you walk into our space, you will see it's big. Like, immediately there is it's bright and big and very vibrant, right? So we've had tours where a participant, someone maybe they have autism, they walk in with their mom. As soon as they walk in, they'll see 3 or 4 people ready to greet them, and they'll turn and run out, right? Because it's so overwhelming for them. Not to say that this may not be the right program for them, but that's their initial impression, right? So we want the family member to be aware of that this might be something that may or may not work for them. So we have those initial discussions. If the initial discussion, they like our program, they like what we do, the participant seems to adapt well to what we have here, we would then request them to let us know by email that they are interested, and also ask them or their case manager to email us a document called the Individualized Service Plan. It's called the ISP. And that's a document that every individual that's funded by DDD and Medicaid, they're required to have. And their case manager and the family members work together to detail all their support needs. So it goes over their healthcare needs, their dietary needs, allergies, medication needs, behavioral needs, even self-care. So how are they with toileting, right? Because for us, it's so normal for us, I have to go go to the bathroom, and I go quickly, come back, wash my hands, I'm done, right? For them, it's like they need, it's a process, right? So when they go to the bathroom, and even if they are independent toileting, are they independent after they have done toilet, right? Are they able to wipe themselves, for example? Like all those details are so important, right? And initially when I started looking at these, it was really detailed, and something, if you're not used to it, you may be, oh wow, why do you need all that information? But it's important because they are here 8 hours, right, in our care, and we need to have all that information. So that document is pretty good, and we review that before the intake meeting. Myself, our program director, Emily, the nurse, Mike, we all review that document to prepare ourselves for the meeting. And at the meeting, we seek clarifications on what's there in the ISP, right? So it may say that, Peter is independent in the toilet, but he may need to be prompted, right? That's all it says. So what does that mean, right? Does it mean that if he's not prompted, he's not going to go to the bathroom? Is he going to have an accident, right? So those are the kind of questions we want to know, because that will define the support, right? That will define whether he needs to be in a group that's going to be a small group of 1 or 2 people, or he can be in a large group of 4 or 5 people, or he needs to have a one-on-one. There may be something, it'll say, he has seizures, right? It may just say that, like, he's had seizures in the past. We'll ask them, when did the last seizure happen? What kind of seizure was there? Like, was it a grand mal? Did he fall on the floor? Right? How frequently does it come up? Because then again, that will define the support needs. We recently had an intake meeting where we now found out that that individual has 3 to 4 seizures a week, right? So almost every other day he has a seizure, and it's a grand mal seizure. That means it's a pretty major seizure. They're like rocking, and they may fall on the floor, right? So someone needs to be in their vicinity all the time, because you don't know when they're going to happen, right? Which pretty much means they need a one-on-one, right? So that kind of detailed, question answer process is what we get into when we do our intake meetings. And that hopefully that gave you the idea and gave the answer to your question. And at the end of that meeting, we typically take 2 weeks after the meeting to let them know if we accept the participant. And after the meeting, we reconvene and we discuss, okay, you know what, these are the support needs. Do we have the right staff? Do we have the right number of staff? Do we have the right kind of staff to be able to support? And if the answer is yes, then we let them know they're accepted. We give them a start date. We give them the paperwork. And unfortunately, in some cases, the answer is no, and we let them know that we can accept it.
So this program is covered by insurance, or they?
It's Medicaid. It's Medicaid, actually, not insurance, but Medicaid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about some success stories, like before joining Down to Dusk? Like all the participants, they were at home, right? Like, so there will be difference from being at home all the time and now coming in, like in a group, doing group activities, being with other people.
Yeah.
What difference do you see? Like,
I always think of Michael when I'm asked this question. Michael is among the first participant who joined Onto Dusk. So just to rewind ourselves a little bit, we opened during the pandemic. At that time, DDD allowed all the day programs to open for in I think it was September of 2020. So even though it was the pandemic time, they said, okay, you guys can open. So we opened in October. October 5th was the first time we opened in person. And Michael was among the first group of participants. We onboarded 6 of them, and one of them was Michael. When we did Michael's intake meeting, my entire team, so we were sitting and we were going through the intake process. Um, and at the end of the meeting, and I've never done this, this is the only meeting where I've done this. I made a commitment to the mom. We are going to support Michael. I just said that as we're going to take care of him, right? Michael is a highly autistic individual, extremely high support needs, very frail, and he has a lot of medical issues because of his autism as well. So he's, if you bucket like the degree of autism from 1 to 10, he's a 10. Like that level of support he needs. So my entire team thought I was crazy. Every Anandi is my wife. She's also the partner of Dusk. And of course, she went along with me, right? She's always like that. She will go along if I feel strongly about something. But she thought I was crazy because really, we are just getting started. And how are we going to support, right? For someone with that degree of support. So we started, we for 6 weeks, in fact, we were open in person and we supported him. We learned him, we struggled through some of the situations, but we were able to support him. But after 6 weeks, because the pandemic, right during Thanksgiving of 2020, the COVID numbers were going through the roof. So the state decided to shut down all the day programs. So we closed and we went virtual. Michael joined us virtually, right? And he connected. I mean, it was not like perfect, but he was there. He was present, and so we could see glimpses of him, trying to. And he lives in a group home. Again, individuals may live in their own house or they may live in a group home, which is a residential setting. And Michael's mom is very much involved with his day to day, what is happening in his life. So even though he lives in a group home, mom is his major advocate and guardian, right? So he would be in the group home. He would be in a bean bag, lying down, and his eyes will be on the device, like whatever it was, right? Maybe it was an iPad or whatever that he was doing the virtual programming, and he would join for 3 hours every day, and he was present. So when we reopened in March 2021, Michael came back. And, you know, today, Michael is amazingly active in our program. He goes swimming 2 to 3 times a week at a local swim club. He enjoys the water. He does like dolphin swims in the water. He participates in all of our outing. We take him, he enjoys eating outside. He would participate in our music enrichment program big time. He loves music. And all in all, he's thriving. Like, he goes outside of our program. Mom takes him horseback riding. So he goes horseback riding. So his life is so much more enriched than what it was 3 years ago. And it's really a heartwarming story because, I even look back maybe 1.5, 2 years ago. Even though he was getting better, he would still spend a lot of time. He used to love the beanbag. So we used to have a beanbag for him at the center, also at the group home. We used to have one. And he would just come in every now and then, he would just plop into the beanbag and he will stay there for, sometimes a couple of hours. The staff will be next to him going through stuff, but he would be comfortable in the beanbag. Now, beanbag doesn't exist anymore. He sits in a chair like all of us. He goes for walks. So it's really, truly the biggest success story for us. Like, having someone like Michael and seeing him thrive and grow. It's been amazing. So that was one. The other participant I would name as someone who I think has really, thrived. I mean, there are many of them, but the two that come to mind, the second person her name is Ariana. Extremely quiet. And she's also been there right from the beginning. She joined us for the first time when we started the virtual program. Very quiet to begin with, but the way she's blossomed and the way she's opened up, many of these individuals are non-verbal, but they understand. They have the ability to understand what you're saying, and they may also respond in their own way. And Ariana has become so much more clearer over time in her speech. She'll walk. I couldn't believe one day, like about a year ago, I was just walking somewhere here and she was like, "Hi, Sesh." And she just like said that. I'm like, "Oh, you know my name? How do you know my name?" And I was so happy just to hear her see me and say, "Hi, Sesh." And then every now and then she'll start engaging in a conversation, some of which I won't understand, but I still really so much appreciate the fact that she's now gotten so much more comfortable and social and just having conversations in her own way, right? So these have been some of the success stories that really makes us want to do this more and more and expand and provide more support to these individuals.
Wow. Yeah, that's truly emotional. It made me emotional actually. Yeah. So how do you keep yourself like calm being in this kind of environment, right? Like challenging every time you constantly you need to keep awake, you keep your antennas up all the time. How do you wind down? Like,
um, well, self care is a big part of my routine. I've for the past several years. So I am a very active athlete. I run, I swim, I bike. I'm a triathlete. So my morning started at 4 o'clock in the morning. I got up, I made my tea, did some me time in the morning. That's a part of my routine. And I spend a good amount of time in the morning just reflecting, reading, listening to things, writing some things about that I would like to do, like my intentions for the day, right? So that kind of sets me up for the day. And then I started my run this morning around 6 o'clock from my house. I ran to the swim club, which is about 3 miles. Had my 1 hour of swim, and then from there, the center is about 2 miles. So I ran 2 miles to the center. I showered at the center, and when I do all that, I'm 8:30. I'm entering my office. I'm ready. Like I'm ready to tackle anything that comes in. Right. I eat very healthy. Also, my morning breakfast is a big bowl of all the fruits like berries, banana, different papaya and different types of, depending on the season, different fruits and nuts. So, I put in a lot of nuts as well. All that, is kind of sets me up for the day. So I'm kind of, by the time most of the world is getting up, I'm also already up like 5 hours and I've done all of this. And I think that's been a huge, huge part of not just, having individuals who may have challenging behaviors or challenges throughout the day or medical issues and working with them, but also other business challenges, right? You may have other business challenges come up, like, maybe your contract is not getting signed because of something. And, able to handle all of these challenges that come out throughout the day, they seem very trivial when you've prepared yourself for the day, so much far ahead of the world coming, or, coming to their senses in a way. So I would say that is probably the biggest way for me to stay sane, I guess. Uh, Other than that, of course, there are times when I get, uh, you know, anxious or feel stressed. Uh, and the routine also helps me handle it better if I do get into those situations and not overreact, and have that emotional intelligence to just let it pass. If I do get into a situation where, I'm getting stressed or anxious and, you know, upset, there have been occasions where I've yelled at people and, I reflect on that. So my next day's, intention, yesterday I behaved very badly. I'll make sure I don't do it today, right? That's my intention for the day. So I try to do it as much as possible, and I think that has helped me a lot.
I was coming to your music also. I've seen you performing on the stage with the Hidden James show.
Yes, yes, absolutely, yes.
So, do you find time to practice? Like, do you sing regularly?
Yeah, so I tried hard to stop that part because when you do so many different things, something has to give, right? So I decided that I'm not going to be singing anymore. But my group is, such a group of wonderful people. They won't let me, stop singing. They are like, you do whatever you want. We'll work with you. Okay, if you have a show coming in, you only come for these practices, and we'll work with you. We know, your schedule is tight and all that. So that's been a huge, having that support system, that has people that believe in you and want to really support you through all these other initiatives or priorities you have in life has been huge. So obviously, I love singing. It's been a great passion, and I think I've been blessed to have that natural talent. I learned singing after I became significant. Like when I was 50, I started learning Hindustani classical with Rajesh Paranjpay for about a year. But for most of my life, I've never formally learned singing. I've learned whatever I have is through my dad because I used to watch him sing. Um, but so it's been a blessing, and I certainly want to continue doing that. And if I have a support system like I have today, I don't have no doubt that I'll continue singing.
Nice. Yeah. So, looking back, do you think there was something that you would have done differently? Like leaving a Wall Street job, which is a dream job for everyone, right from there. Looking back, if you think of anything that you would like to change.
I honestly, Gayatri, no, I wouldn't change a thing. And the reason I say that is I've so much come to believe that everything happens for a reason. And when you look back and when you try to connect those dots, it is the way it's supposed to happen. It's exactly the way it's supposed to happen. I had given my resignation at Bloomberg uh, 2 weeks before COVID. We didn't know COVID was coming, right? And because we had already started the construction, I was pretty set in my mind that this is where I wanted to be, even though there was no, revenue, no income, no business, because we were still in the construction phase. I was 100% positive. So I'd given my resignation. And 2 weeks later, COVID struck. And so I was still of the opinion that I should go ahead, but many of my friends, family members, advised me it's a bad idea. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. And in my mind, and I think most of us at that time, we're like, oh, what? A month we'll be back to normal. Right? Nobody predicted, at least in the beginning, that COVID is going to last so long. But I took those advices and then I went back to my company and I said, I want to rescind my resignation. I eventually will resign, but I don't think this is the right time because of COVID. And the company was like phenomenal. My superiors, my bosses, they were like, you make the decision. Stay here as long as you want. And when you tell us you want to resign, you can resign. So yes, I don't know how things would have ended up if had I really resigned or had I been asked to leave. But I stuck there for the next 1 year, and then the benefit of that was that I was actually coming to the center because it was all work from home. I would work from the center, and I was able to be involved in the construction process because the construction was going on. There was a contractor involved with it, but I was actually hands-on in actually observing it, asking them to make changes as I was working through the Bloomberg job. And I'm like, I'm a 200% work ethics kind of a person. So I would put in my time at Bloomberg. I would work after hours and all that. But the fact that I was able to be here during the day was a huge boon, right? Um, and then, through the COVID, we saw everything happen. The lease we had signed was such a boon because the lease, basically there was a sentence in the lease which I had not even paid attention to, said that I don't have to pay rent until 3 months after we get the certificate of occupancy. And because of the DOH, the DCA process and all that, as I said, we didn't get the certificate of occupancy for a year and a half. So for that whole year and a half, I was not paying rent. And of course, the landlord was frustrated. He was coming after me. He was threatening to sue me. But the lease language was very clear, right? And I showed him that. I showed it to my attorney, and my attorney advised me that there's nothing for you to fear. Like, let him sue you. He's not going to win because the language is very clear. It's not your fault that you're not getting the CO. You can document, you can show all the documents that this is what is happening. You're not delaying anything. So that was kind of a boon. So every single thing has fallen in place exactly how it should have. So I'm like, I'm totally sold on the belief that everything happens for a reason. And only when you look back and put the puzzle pieces in place, it becomes apparent. So, just to answer your question, nothing I would change. Absolutely no. It's
Okay.
exactly the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, right. Any advice for our audience to who dream to start something but to actually jump into something new, they are scared. Any advice for them?
Um, I would say, you know, don't give up. And based on personal experience, right? Like, don't give up on continuing to try, because the one reason that you may not have persisted or have given up or not, or something may not have worked out, it's possible the reason was that that was not meant for you. You were not 100% into that, right? And my example for that is all the financial businesses that I thought I wanted to be in. Right? My heart would not be in that. So if I didn't go into this current venture and business I'm in, uh, rewind like 5 years, I was a failure because I gave up on those businesses. But really, looking back, I gave up on those because those were not meant for me, right? And your heart will tell you when something is really meant for you. And at that point, you will just capture it and you will get into it, right? So, if you tried a couple of businesses and it's failed, or your heart has not been in there, or you've given up, um, don't stop there. Try the next thing, right? Maybe that's the right thing for you, and that's the one that's going to be what your heart is looking for. So that would be the one big advice I would give to anybody wanting to start a business or trying to think of something new. And that's totally based on my personal experience.
Yeah. Going back, all this journey started with your niece, right?
Yes.
Oh,
These
you,
and my sister.
yeah. So now you being full time into this sector, how is it helping them over there?
Uh, that's a great question. Well, not directly, right? Because they are in India. They're actually in a residential facility at this time in Bangalore, they are doing a great job, taking care of them, ensuring that they have all the supports in place. So directly, of course, not, because they're in India. We actually tried for a short while if there was an opportunity for us to bring them here, but it would have been too much of a change, too much of a wait, because it would all the application process, and then the funding. There would have been a lot of complication. So we made a decision to have them stay in India and be supported correctly there. But I think the indirect benefit is us of me being in this space, in this industry, intermingling with a lot of our participants with those kinds of needs. I'm able to ask the right questions and provide the right type of answers that can support my sister and my niece. I think that would be what I would say the indirect benefit of me being in this field. We still visit them typically once a year. One of us, either so we'll take turns. Like every year, one of us will be there for a period of time. So that's going to continue happening, and we're going to when we go there, we are able to see also what kind of support or things that can be changed to make their lives better. So I think that probably is one area I would say. But the second, and I'm just thinking about this as you're saying, as you ask the question. The second could be financial, right? So now that there is a financial security, that most of our financial needs are taken care of for our family. Uh, you know that need for my sister, because she's not employed, she's not employable. Same for my niece. But they have their entire life, especially my niece. She has the entire life in front of her. How do we provide those funds for her? Because in India, you don't get that from the government, right? You may get some small amount, but how do you provide those funds? And us having that financial security here does give us something extra that we can pass along to them. So I guess that would be another benefit from having the business and the financial security that comes with business.
What role does the community plays in this business model?
I think very critical, right? Because the special needs community is very sort of closed in the sense that they are all, and not in a bad way at all, like because they support each other, right? And so our ability to hit the right chords with the community as a whole, the special needs community, is very critical. And we try our best to integrate with them. We provide opportunities for families to participate in feedback opportunities. We do a parent collaborative meeting every 3 months. Typically, we host a meeting where the families can join in. We offer our space. In fact, I just remember today the South Brunswick parents for special needs kids are going to meet at our center. So we offer them the space that they can use for their meetings. So as much as practically possible, we engage ourselves with the community, and it's very necessary, I believe. And it also helps build the goodwill and as well as the support of the community, because a program like ours cannot thrive without having the support of the special needs community. And that, for all intents and purposes, that's the community that we serve and work with.
So, what is the difference between regular adult daycare and down to dusk?
Great question, Gayatri, because I think there is some degree of misconception or even maybe a lack of understanding of the different services available based on your support needs. So the adult medical daycare is available for any adult that's 18 and over, but it's mostly accessed by seniors, but it's available for anybody 18 and over. But they have to be assessed for certain medical needs. It could be certain disabilities, certain kind of, uh, uh, diabetes, or certain cholesterol need, or maybe they are bedridden. Like those kind, they are assessed for those needs once they become an adult. And if they are assessed with having those needs, and there is a care plan that's developed to take care of those needs, they qualify for what's called a long-term care. And as a part of long-term care, they get Medicaid funding, and with their Medicaid funding, they become eligible to get adult medical daycare services or adult medical day services, which is funded by Medicaid, but the reimbursement comes through insurance companies. There are 5 insurance companies, I believe, that take Medicaid funding and then they reimburse the providers. So that's the adult medical daycare world. It's all under the Department of Health of New Jersey, right? So that's DOH. DDD, on the other hand, developmental disabilities are birth, you have it right from birth, right? So you're diagnosed with these disabilities right from the time at your very young age. I mean, obviously not very. Some of them may be diagnosed as soon as you're born because it's very obvious. But autism, for example, you may not know until your child is 3, 4, 5, sometimes even later than that. And then once there is a suspicion that your child might have autism, they are then diagnosed for it. They run tests. And if they are assessed, okay, this individual has the diagnosis of autism, it becomes a developmental disability. It's there from the childhood. It's not an acquired illness, right? So that's the big difference, is that it's a developmental disability. It's right from the childhood. It's not curable, and it is something that you live with for the rest of your life. And the Department of Human Services is the state department that manages that program with the help of DDT, which is the Division of Developmental Disability of New Jersey, right? So that funding also comes from Medicaid, but Medicaid reimburses the providers like us directly, right? So I don't have to go through any insurance company. I just directly bill Medicaid and they pay us directly. Right? So that's kind of the two big differences. You will see mostly adult medical daycares are catering seniors, right? You will see 60 plus, some of them maybe 80, 90-year old that go to adult medical daycare. They go for the socialization, they go for long-term medical needs and so on and so forth. A DDD program, especially like the one for like ours, you'll see a lot of young people. Like our program, it's by the way, the other difference is adult medical daycare. Even though you see a lot of seniors, it's 18 plus, but the DDD program, day habilitation, is 21 plus. And many participants in our program are between 21 and 30. They're young adults. There are only two people that are over 60, right? So you'll see a lot of young adults because once they graduate from school, the parents are looking for a place where they could go and continue some level of engagement, education, life skill learning, ADLs, activity of daily living, and all that stuff.
Nice. Just for more clarity, what's the difference between Medicare and insurance?
So insurance companies are your it's Medicaid. Okay, so Medicaid is entitlement program, right? So it is based on your income level, your asset level. You may qualify for Medicaid. So CAID, right? Whereas Medicare is something that you become eligible once you retire, once you turn 65, right? And we all pay into Medicare. It's not an entitlement. We pay into Medicare as a part of our payroll deductions, right? So that's the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. Both adult medical daycare and the DDD day habilitation are funded by Medicaid, CAID, because for the adult medical daycare, the determination is made based on the assets or the income for those seniors, and typically it's below poverty. They don't make that much money, so they qualify. For us, those individuals, they cannot be hired or they don't have a job. They've turned 21, they're adults. So because they don't have any income or assets, they qualify for Medicaid that way, right? So Medicaid is entitlement funding based on your asset and income level. The insurance are all these insurance companies, right? So Aetna, Horizon, United Healthcare, WellCare, right? These are all insurance companies, major big companies, right? So the Department of Health, for whatever reason, right? I'm sure they have their own reason, has contracted with the insurance companies like Aetna, Horizon, United Healthcare to manage the funding or the dollars for the adult medical daycare. So Medicaid will still be funding it, but they've contracted, they've outsourced the managing of that money to these insurance companies, right? So it's still the same money, but it's coming through the insurance company. On the DDD side, Medicaid has said we'll take care of the funding ourselves. We don't need to go through the insurance company, right? So they probably gone through another contracted service to manage the just the financial aspect, but they have not gone through the insurance companies.
My last question is your future plans for Down to Dusk and you as a person.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So, I mean, the most exciting thing that's happening immediately in the future is GAP, GAP. So, we are starting a transition program for high school graduates that graduated in this year, in June 2024, and we are calling it GAP, which is Graduate Adjustment Period. That's a transition program for new graduates. It's going to be in the same building, but we have leased additional space. And we just finished it just yesterday. The space was finished, the interior changes and the designing, the painting, and all that was done. Uh, and so the idea behind that is that what we have seen in our short 3 year experience is that uh, when students, after being in the secure school system, when they graduate, especially the students that have special needs, it's a big change for them, right? Because in the school system, they have smaller groups. Many of them have a paraprofessional that work with them one on one. Many of them have therapy services, occupational therapy, speech therapy, uh, physical therapy, right at school, right? They have special communication devices that the school provides them with an iPad, and there are communication software. So there is so much support that's available for them at school. They get a behaviorist working with them. And all of a sudden they graduate and it's gone. Like, they come into the adult world and they lose all of that, right? So the parents struggle, the family, the individual struggle. So it's a big transition for them. So the idea behind Gap is that we're going to make that transition smoother. So when they come in, it's a smaller program. We're going to admit 16 individuals. They're going to start in the smaller setting. It will be more of a classroom type setting. So it's going to help them ease from the classroom setting they had in the school to the adult world while still being in a more or less classroom setting, but different from school. They'll have more proximate or smaller groups. So they'll be in a ratio of one staff to two participants. There'll be at least four of them which have a one-on-one. There'll be maybe a few of them that have one staff to two participants. And then the most we'll have is one staff to three participants. So that's how we'll have the ratios so they get the most support. There'll be a lot of vocational skill development because they are used to that in the school system. There is a lot of vocational training going on. We'll have therapy services available. We already have an occupational therapist on staff, and we'll provide physical and speech therapy as well for these individuals. And so try to replicate, although it's going to be very difficult to 100% mimic the school system, try to replicate at least some aspect of the school system. So that's the most exciting thing for me. Long term, I am pretty much reserved to the thought that this is my future. Like dawn to dusk is where I would like to be for the rest of my life. And I want to expand the services. We started off with 11,000 square feet, and now we have doubled to 22,000 square feet within the same building. The building is about 66,000 square feet. And so my goal is at some point, and maybe that's a 10-year plan, is to have the entire building dedicated to dawn to dusk for different services, different type of opportunities, maybe job skills development, all directed towards special needs, right? So that's kind of my future. I do plan to, live my entire life being the, the only owner with my wife, of course, of Dawn to Dusk. I don't have any aspiration to sell the company or take it public or anything like that. I am very comfortable keeping it within our family. I'm really optimistic and hopeful that at least one, if not more of, I have three girls. All of them, like the eldest is 21. She's going to take up a job in Manhattan. She just graduated from NYU. The middle one is learning psychology. She's a junior at Rutgers, and the youngest one is just going to get into the higher education. She's going to join NYU this fall. So I'm hopeful that at least one of them, if not all three of them, take on the reins from me and run this as a part of their future. So that's how I'm thinking about my future and how I think about Dawn to Dusk as well.
That's amazing. Nice. So how do you spread awareness of this program? Like how do people know about this? Do you have like marketing team or
Yeah. So initially, when we had done the business plan, I had put a pretty large budget to marketing, and I'm so happy we've not used that budget at all. So yeah, because we thought we'll have to do a lot of marketing and all that, but the only thing that we really do on a regular basis, if you want to call it marketing, we put out a monthly newsletter. You can see it on the website. There is a link for the newsletter, and the first of every month we publish the newsletter for. We call it the newsletter for that month. So day after tomorrow, it'll be actually tomorrow, right? Today is the 31st. Oh, 30th. Okay, day after tomorrow, it will be the August newsletter, and it will go over everything that we did in July and what we're going to do in August, right? So that's kind of the idea behind that. That's kind of the only marketing I would call. Other than that, we keep our families informed. There is a weekly email that goes from our program coordinator that gives the entire schedule for our program for the following week. The team breakdown for each of the participants with their names so that the parents, the guardians know exactly which team their loved one is, and what kind of week they're going to have the following week. And it also goes to all the case managers for our participants. And my belief is that that has resulted in a lot of word of mouth. So, you know, because this these something that we do, as simple as it is, it's rare. No other program does it, and we've taken the time and effort to do it. So I believe that many of the case managers, when they get those emails, they read it and they just forward it. They're like, "Oh, look at this program. You may want to check this out," right? And then people go on our website, they see our newsletter, they see all the details. So the word of mouth has been a big factor in drawing many of the families and the participants to our program. We have so the GAP program was like um, the idea was generated in the last 3 months. So until 3 months ago, our waiting list was running about 6 months. And one of the reasons we have a waiting list is we only onboard two participants a month, one participant every 2 weeks, right? So, at this time, for the month of September is kind of unique because of gap. But for the month of July, we have two participants already scheduled, or have been already onboarded. For the month of August, we have two people that's coming on board, and so on and so forth. So if anybody that's not a June 2024 graduate wants to be a part of our program, their start date, if we interview them today, if we do the intake meeting today, they'll be able to start sometime in February 2025, right? So that's how much the wait time is. But the parents are willing to wait because they know that they're getting into a very good program and there is a reason for the waiting list. And they know that their loved one will be safe. The graduate program we started was to address one of that challenges because many parents told us that, hey, my son is going to graduate in July 2020, I mean, June 2024. If you make me wait 6 months, he's going to regress. You need to do something about it. So that's when I said, okay, let's do something just for the graduates. And before we knew, we said the 16 participants, we already filled 13 slots. And in the next 2 weeks, we'll fill up three more slots, right? So the marketing is just happening organically. And so we don't spend much of time and effort on that. It's just word of mouth. And we're just doing what we can do to the best of our ability. I have a saying, I don't know if you can see here,
The
the
best.
best.
Mhm.
Yes. So, I truly believe in this. I 100% believe that we are better than what we were last year. Right? Last July, we were not as good as we are today. But I also believe that next July will be better than what we are today. Right? And I truly work on that with my team, and my team believes on that too. Now, and it's so cool to hear them say that now. Like they will say it now, and so I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Where did you learn that from? So yeah, that's. I mean, I don't know if that answered your question, but really no marketing, but at the same time, we get enough things out to the people we care about and we support that the good word just gets spread around.
Nice. Yeah, it's good. So good luck for your future down to dusk. Good luck for Gap.
Thank you.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
good luck for everything.
I
And
appreciate. I certainly appreciate. Uh, the interview, and I when you reached out to me, I was a little bit like, and I think I mentioned this to you, right? I was like, oh, really, me? Or like, do I um, am I deserving of this? Like, it's kind of a thing, right? But I really appreciate that, I hope this helps people and they're able to get something out of it. And what you're doing is truly phenomenal because I heard a couple of your podcasts with others, other business owners, and even other professionals, and it was truly inspiring. So what you're doing is truly commendable, and thank you for selecting me because it's special, and um, I don't know if I'm deserving of it. Obviously, you think I am, so thank you for that.
of course you do. I mean, this is incredible. Like it is not easy to do this. Right. Right. So thank you so much. Thank you for giving your time and giving your insights. Thank you so much.
Yeah. No, I really, my heart filled up as well as I remembering all those days. So again, thank you for, you don't take time to reflect. And this was a very reflective opportunity for me. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.